Howdy, kids. John Sawicki here from Vigilante Copywriter. Okay. Howdy, kids. John Sawicki here from the Vigilante Copywriter. For some reason today, I was thinking about morning routines. I think it was because I watched a morning routine for a copywriter video, and I was like, absolutely no copywriting is getting done here, so this is just a generic morning routine. And it made me think about some of the principles that I think about when it comes to morning routines. I do think morning routines are kind of overrated in the overall personal development space, in the business space, in the entrepreneur space. And yet people are very interested in them. So I thought I'd share a little bit about what I do and what I think about what my specific morning routine is. Yes, fine. But also how I think about morning routines and kind of time in general. I'll make another video at some point about some of my principles about how I think about time and so-called time management. The way I think about this is very different from how everyone else talks about it, so I think it would be worth sharing. But today, for this video, I just want to talk a little bit about how I think about my morning routine and how you might want to think about your morning routine. And yes, I'm aware, because I think I'm sharing my whole screen. It is definitely not the morning right now. I'm just sitting on my couch. I think in a little bit I'm going to have a friend over and watch a movie. But for now, we're just going to get into what's in this document. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about are some of the principles of how I think about morning routines, because I don't necessarily want you to copy my morning routine. And as you'll see, it's pretty unlikely that it's relevant to you exactly what I do. Instead, I want to share the principles of how I think about morning routines, and then show you exactly what I do. And then at the end of the video, I'll also give kind of an example of a more copywriting centric morning routine. So yes, I'm a copywriter. I'm a marketing consultant. I do some coaching as well. And yes, I make over six figures, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? The point is how I think about my morning routine does really help me set the tone for a positive day. And it prevents other influences that I may not want from fucking with me, right? So let's talk about this. So first of all, I just want to say, and this is one of my big time management principles, you don't have to do anything ever. It's all made up. It's all just a story. It's all just a program that's running in your head. And you might say, no, I have to do something because school tells me to, or my parents told me to, or my something about my upbringing told me to, or even religion told me to. All of that is just a story. It's all just you are choosing to perceive those stories as valuable, and that's perfectly fine. We all have to, we all have to have some values somewhere. I'm just saying you don't have to do anything. And so if you have a morning routine where you're doing, 3 different kinds of meditation and 10 different kinds of journaling and drinking 3 different kinds of tea and cold showers and hot sauna and sunlight and walking and exercise and yoga and all this stuff, and it's overwhelming to you, or you see other people doing it and you're like, that sounds awful, but that guy does it and he's successful, just recognize you don't have to do any of that. Okay, you don't actually even have to have a morning routine at all. You can just do random shit every day. You can just make every morning different, right? So, and honestly, I do that a lot too. So I have a morning routine, but I don't always initiate it. It's kind of like I have it there. It's like a workout. It's like a specific workout. I can follow what's on the workout program, or I can just do something else, right? And it's my choice. So just recognize that you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to do routine at all. And whatever you do can be your choice. And I would encourage you to choose what feels good and what actually works for you, rather than following what anyone says, including, sciencey people, right? There's a lot of science input, especially these days, around what your morning should look like. Fuck that. Okay. The main thing I think about is, the morning is a bit like a preparation for the rest of the day. It's sort of like a warm up at the gym. And so I want to prepare my mind and my body for the day. Now, as you'll see, I also don't want to spend an inordinate amount of time doing that. In reality, I want to get something that's actually important to me done, and hopefully that also puts me in a good state physically and mentally for the rest of the day. And we'll kind of talk about that more in a little bit. I would also encourage you to be cautious of the inputs, and really not just any inputs, like, checking the news or checking, your work email or messages from people you may not want to receive input from. I would maybe argue be cautious about any inputs, especially before you yourself have a chance to get your own, mental state right, and maybe even to create or do something highly valuable. So that can be making something new, or it can be just doing something that's important to you. And an example would be going to the gym is not necessarily creative. If you're a writer, going to the gym is not doing your creative work, but it might be something that's highly valuable to you, that means a lot in your life, and sets you up for feeling good the rest of the day, etc. I would argue that counts as being highly valuable. Now, I also don't think you have to be super dogmatic about never checking your phone. I think a lot of this stuff has been really overblown. A lot of it, I also hypothesize, is like the way in which it affects your physiology is very top down. So if you assume it affects your physiology negatively, it will. Whereas if you just don't care, it won't affect you that much. Like, you won't get some crazy dopamine thing from checking your messages first thing in the morning. And I mean, especially if you or you're a solopreneur or you're a freelancer and you spend most of your time alone, I mean, it makes sense to get up and want to hear from your friends and not feel so alone. You know what I mean? I do that too sometimes. Having said that, I do think on average it's worthwhile to think about being cautious about having any input or stimuli before you create or do things, or like do some inner work, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then lastly, and I kind of already alluded to this, you know, a lot of people's morning routines are exclusively things that don't actually move the needle in their lives, or aren't part of their true list of important tasks. I would argue try to just roll out of bed and get some shit done, some important shit. Um, if you can do some of your work, essentially, for lack of a better term, in the morning, first thing, that might be awesome. You get it done. You might be more clear headed. Like I said, not as many inputs. Maybe you have a lot of energy. Um, and then you just know that you're going to get it done. I'll talk more about this in a second, but I encourage a lot of my students, if they're in a phase of really focusing on one aspect of their business or their freelancing, I basically tell them, roll out of bed, take a piss, get some water, and do that thing, even for just 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be that you sit there for 3 hours. Even just 20, 30 minutes can mean that you make an impact on that thing. Maybe it's even done. And then you can go, hey, I got my most important thing done today, or I got this, highly important piece of my work done already. And it's been the first 30 minutes of the day. I think the reason most people don't do this is because they think they have to do all this warm-up-y shit in their morning routine before they do that, or they perceive that it's too exhausting, or it's going to take longer than it has to. There's sort of these stories about why one can't do those most important things kind of like first thing in the morning or right when you wake up. And I would say a lot of that is not true. And I would also say, from my experience, if you're a little brain foggy or just not totally there when you first wake up, you can actually train yourself to get better at kind of being alert and whatever, otherwise having the energy and the capacity to do those things, kind of right when you wake up. All right, so let's keep going. So let me explain what I do, and you'll see that it kind of relates to some of the principles above. So first of all, I do not wake up to an alarm. Fuck that. That was kind of one of my rich rules, as Ramit Sethi talks about, when I went into freelancing. And I've pretty much always been a freelancer. I've rarely in my life had a normal job, but my body hates waking up to an alarm. And truly, I could sleep for a dozen hours, and if I wake up to an alarm, I'll feel a little off the whole day. So there's just something about the alarm that just doesn't work for me. Yes, I use it if I have to get on a plane or something, get on a flight, but um, I basically don't set an alarm ever. And I think it's the universe every day that I don't have to do that. So I don't use an alarm because I want to wake up when my body's ready. And again, this goes back to and I should probably add an additional principle here, give yourself permission to be intuitive, right? Do what feels good and right to you. Like I said, including having no routine at all. Because I want my body to wake up when it wants to. All right, you get the idea. So I make the bed, take a piss, and then I usually get some water and I put salt in it. I am not here to explain why that's awesome. Go Google it. But it adding some sea salt to your water, fucking rules. And then I basically jump right into my number one thing. And for most of my adult life, this has been practicing speed picking exercises on the guitar. Now, I know this is not really copywriting, but I am a guitar player in addition to a copywriter. And in my craft of being a metal guitarist, um, being able to pick really fast is probably the most important skill. So it's kind of an 80-20 of all the things I need to be able to do on the guitar. The 20% that I'm gonna have to do 80% of the time is pick really fast and clean and consistently and so on. So at some point early in my 20s, I might have even been a late teenager. I was like, man, I'm not really practicing this enough. I'm not practicing enough. And I just had the idea, why don't I just roll out of bed and do it first thing in the morning? And that's really the genesis of a lot of my thinking about morning routines, was that I started to do that first thing in the morning, these picking exercises. And then I was like, wow, I'm actually getting this done every day. Whereas before I was very inconsistent about it. There's something, for me at least, about rolling out of bed and just doing the damn thing that makes it very consistent. That means I can get it done very consistently. And if you're not consistent about something, it's very hard to progress at it and experience the results of doing it. So I encourage you to kind of pick a number one thing. And I do it for just 30 minutes. Sometimes I add additional exercises or additional practice or other things. Like I said, this can kind of change depending on what season I'm at in life. But on average, this is kind of how I think about it. 30 minutes of my number one thing. And if I'm in a season where like I really need to get new clients for my business, I might skip this or put it later in the day. And this number one thing is 30 minutes of getting clients. We'll talk about that in a second. But like I said, I encourage you to pick kind of your number one thing and more or less roll out of bed, fine, take a piss, get some water, whatever, open the windows, and then just do it. Even if it's just for 30 minutes. You can always do more of it later, but the act of just like getting the thing started, it means you're going to get it done when you otherwise wouldn't. And also it often means you're more clear-headed for it. You've better focus because you haven't had the day kind of weigh you down yet, and you haven't invited any distractions in yet. So I really encourage that. After that, I do some meditation or inner work. So I just did something kind of physical. I want to do something now to work on my mindset. And one of the ways I think about this is like, you're going to get brainwashed by the world. So you might as well brainwash yourself first. So I do a lot of meditation around money. I do a lot of inner child work. I just, try to notice what's going on for me internally, pay attention to it, tend to it, heal anything. Also give myself the validation or support on certain things if I feel like I need it. It's just, like I said, it's whatever comes up. And one way to think about your inner work is it's like going to the gym. There's not just one thing you want to do. There's a variety of things that might need to happen in order to strengthen and heal the various things going on for you internally. And then whatever inner work I do, I usually journal about it after. Then I'm, get some movement in, go for a walk, get some sunlight, rinse off real quick. Usually I just take a cold shower. Even with my long hair, I usually just tie it up and rinse off my body because it's not like super hard training. If I'm hungry, I'll throw some food down. Just again, it's just whatever I feel like I need to give myself that energy. And then I do what I call priority time. And that's just whatever is going on in my life. Again, whatever season. This is usually a longer session than this number one thing, but I do whatever is the priority for me right now. So that could be, if I have a bunch of client work on some client work. If I feel like I need to work on my skills, I'll do some learning, hand copying, studying, whatever. We'll talk about that. If I'm in a phase where I need to get some more clients, that's client acquisition time. Or if I have something else going on in my life, like if my band needs to prepare for a show, or if I'm working on a song, maybe that's what goes there. But again, this isn't just one thing in a static sense. I am prioritizing whatever is the priority in my life at that time. And you'll notice here that like all this is really stuff that makes a big difference, or it's fairly quick. Like this is just me waking up. This is just taking a piss and grabbing some water. Yes, I make the bed also. I like having a bed that's made. I think that's a good thing to do, but like that takes a minute, right? Then I do my number one thing, and then I do meditation and inner work. That really primes my nervous system to be successful, productive, focused, and frankly to like not only make money but attract money. I am definitely a fan of like your vibration, your energy affects the world around you and can bring good or potentially bad stuff to you. And so I will just say, and I don't have this fully mastered yet, but I will say that doing some meditation and inner work really does help me make money. So I consider that highly valuable from me, from a business standpoint. get the body moving, right? So we've done some, we've done some stuff for the mind, and now we get the body moving. I usually just kind of roll out my yoga mat, move around a little bit. Again, very intuitive. I can say more about that another time. But there's no like strict, like I must do this much jump roping or this much running or this much kettlebell swings or whatever. Point is, I just need to move, get some sunlight, rinse off, feel clean, fuel myself, whatever I need to do. And I think that, for this, you can do whatever you feel like you need to do. And then I start my priority time. And this is, focused, phone is off, just picking whatever's the most important area of my life to work on at that given time. And I try to do this as soon as possible. And some days, shit happens and you get busy or, things interrupt you. That's fine. But the point is, you just want to do it as soon as you can, So how might I make this more copywriter-y? I pretty much recommend this routine to every copywriter that I coach, because most of them would benefit from this. And back when I was first getting started in copywriting and entrepreneurship and all that stuff, this was pretty much my priority time. I had more or less this routine, and then my priority time, so to speak, was this little routine. And honestly, this was like the 80-20 of turning me from like a newbie to like a pretty damn good copywriter, if I do say so myself, relatively quick. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that with like sincere, focused work, you can make progress pretty quick, as opposed to like constantly jumping around, trying new courses, reading new books, not being focused in the moment when you're doing that work. You're distracted by your phone or social media or whatever. It's kind of like working out. You need a seriously hard workout done in 30 minutes if you're not fucking around. You know what I mean? So let's get into this, and I'll kind of explain more. Now, I will say that what you exactly do, this, like I said, can depend on what season of your business is in. I would also say you can switch the order of these around depending on what feels like the bigger priority. So I still say don't wake up to an alarm if you can avoid it. Like to me, waking up to an alarm by definition is bad for you because your body was not ready to wake up. Otherwise, it would have woken up. You know what I mean? So I would say no alarm if you can avoid it. And yeah, you can still go to the bathroom, get some water, take a few minutes, do whatever you have to do. And if you want, I mean, you can take this time and make it very long. I have a friend who like pours a bowl of cereal and watches cartoons for like a half hour to an hour, kind of first thing. And if that's what works, that's what works. So the core of this is these three things. Start with anything that is client acquisition related. So if that's doing cold reach outs, if that's your social media, I know we kind of said avoid social media first thing, but what I find is that a lot of freelancers and copywriters really put off the client acquisition piece. So again, whatever's the most important or impactful thing, do it first. So I would say for most people, if they're in a phase of needing clients, client acquisition should probably go first. But sometimes I put it third in this little stack. Next up is hand copying or any other kind of like copy or marketing training or learning. I personally love hand copying, emails, sales letters, whatever. That really does help me. And then I don't just hand copy, I also annotate. I take notes, I highlight shit, I make little notes in there. And that's so that I'm learning about the thing from multiple vectors. I can make another video about that. And then from there, I do some practice writing. I practice write to develop the skill or develop, something based on what I just hand copied. And usually like the practice writing is literally stealing stuff from the hand copying. And it's not necessarily going to go get published. So I'm not actually stealing. It's because I'm just trying to get whatever are some of the techniques or principles from whatever I hand copied. I'm just trying to get that into my nervous system. So I just want to practice write based on what I hand copied so that whatever copy principles are, being expressed in the thing, in the piece of copy that I'm copying, I internalize them as well. And then I encourage people to end again with some meditation or inner work or just anything that gets your mindset right. Again, I think this is good both to brainwash yourself for success, so to speak, and also to, attract money and things that you want, energetically. Anyway, so this is pretty much what I do and how I think about, morning routines, as it were. I coach other people to think about it this way, and, have a lot of my students do this kind of stuff. So if this resonated, I am glad to hear that. If it didn't, well, too late. It already happened. If you want to hear more from me, hop on my email list, vigilantecopywriter.com. And otherwise, see y'all in the next video. Talk soon.